Oh baby, here we go again. People comparing old Street Fighter games to the current ones. And you know what? I'm actually here for it because any discourse around games that you love is good discourse. So let's get into it. Alright, so a couple days back, a Street Fighter 6 player by the name of Nightmare Effect released a tweet that just showed Latif versing Daigo in Street Fighter 4, and he was just highlighting how everyone likes to refer to the older Street Fighter games as being more honest or footsie based, neutral based, whatever you want to call it. But he shows examples of characters like C, Viper, and Yun just flying around the screen, and two things really stood out to me on this. The first is, if you don't follow Nightmare Effect, you really should. He posts really entertaining content on Street Fighter 6, and I've been getting a lot of his stuff on my feed lately. He seems like a good dude, and no joke, the stuff that he posts is actually legitimately entertaining, so go check it out. And the second thing is, people hate when you bring up their old favorite games, because ain't no one going to agree on everything. And the beautiful thing about Street Fighter, because it's such a long-lasting franchise, you have folks from all different types of fighting game generations coming out and chiming in. And this is where you can get some awesome discourse going on. And sometimes not so awesome, but we'll save that for another video. My opinion on this, and this is coming from someone that's been playing fighting games for over 25 years, is that there is no such thing as an honest Street Fighter. And in my opinion, they're all a little stupid. And you know what? That's exactly why we love them. Like, look at Street Fighter 2. Every single move in that game is safe, even moves that shouldn't be safe. Damage is absurd. Stuns were random. You can chip out people like crazy. Heck, glitches galore. But guess what? We still love the game. Then you had games like Street Fighter Alpha, where you activate one custom combo and just annihilate and melt your opponent's health bar. And guess what? We love that game too. Then you have Street Fighter 3, and you have things like this. And guess what? Alright, you get the point now. So the main point I'm trying to make is no fighting game is perfect or completely honest. But for the sake of argument and discussion, let's talk about things that I think Street Fighter 4 and 6 got right, and hopefully if someone from Capcom is actually watching this, where they can help in future games. So let's get to it. So I'm going to start by saying both Street Fighter 4 and 6 are incredible. Big shocker, I know, get off my back. But I'm not going to compare things like online play or quality of life, because let's be real, new games should have an edge there, so I'm only going to be focusing strictly on gameplay. So first off, let's look at things that I actually believe that Street Fighter 6 does better than Street Fighter 4. So the first area, I actually think Street Fighter 6 handles supers better than Street Fighter 4. So I'm just going to come out and say it, I hated the Ultra Super system in Street Fighter 4. For those of you that haven't played Street Fighter 4, basically it was the comeback revenge mechanics, so the more damage that you took, you get access to a very powerful super, not too different than the level 3s in Street Fighter 6, but I hated this, and I'm going to tell you why for two reasons. So the first reason is because you normally got your Ultra from taking damage. That means if you're beating the brakes off your opponent, they can get anywhere from 2 to 4 Ultras a game, and that includes an Ultra every round. That's just way too many supers in my opinion, especially supers that are that powerful. And having to respect your opponent doing a wake up Ultra, it was just such a lame way to play the game. And listen, I'm not saying supers in Street Fighter 6 are perfect. Should you really be getting 30 to 50% damage if you land a jab or you check someone's jab? Probably not. But what I do love about Street Fighter 6's supers is that I feel that you really do have to think about your resource management a lot better. You're not guaranteed a level 3 going into round 3, especially if you needed to make a comeback in round 2. I think that level of strategy really adds to the overall gameplay, and it gives your opponent something to look out for too as well. Let's just say you had to blow a level 3 to save the game to send it to round 3. Your opponent can now say that, hey, I know chances are I don't have to deal with a level 3 in this round. I can actually go on the offensive and take a few more chances, and I earned that because my opponent had to waste a lot of resources to close the gap. But when you get Ultras every round, you always have to be worried that your opponent can do a uppercut into Ultra or just a wake up Ultra, and I don't think that is just the best game design in general. Alright, another thing I think Street Fighter 6 does better, and I know I'm going to get ripped on for this, I think it has a better way that it defined its in-game mechanics. Now before everyone throws their tomatoes at me, what I mean by this is, the main gimmick from Street Fighter 4 was focus attack and focus dash canceling, and the problem with these mechanics are that even though they were strong, they definitely served some characters a lot better than they served other characters. Like, it was no secret that characters that had dragon punches into focus attack dash cancels or FADCs had a huge advantage for like 95% of this game's lifespan. Charge characters never really got as much of a FADC as motion characters. Everyone's focus attack was different. They weren't built the same, especially for their game plan. Where at least in Street Fighter 6, you can say that every single character benefits from the in-game mechanics. And obviously some might have better drive rushes or things like that, but a lot of the universal mechanics are much better implemented, and then the entire roster can benefit from it to a large degree. It's not that someone only gets, 10% value and the other percent gets 100. Maybe one character gets 100% value, but the worst character will get 70% value out of it. That's huge. And that's why you see a lot of quote-unquote bad characters in this game still rated in like the B or B plus tier for pro players. And this has been pointed out by pro players as well. Even people like Ryan Hart have tweeted this out, how the in-game battle mechanics is what makes the characters so close in this game. And believe it or not, I actually prefer the blender situations in Street Fighter 6 over Street Fighter 4. And if you don't know what the blender is, it's basically when your opponent gets you on wake up, what are they going to do? You got to cover all their options and make sure you don't get opened up. And don't get me wrong, for as much as I hate drive rush moves or drive rush overhead into big combos, I would take that over having to deal with insane vortexes all over again. I just hated how strong some characters' vortexes were, because not every character had access to them, and the ones that did definitely punished you. And if you're new and you don't know what a vortex is, it's basically a situation where your opponent is able to repeatedly mix you up safely once you're knocked down. Which, if they're successful, let's just say you block wrong and they get you again, you're going to be put right back into that cycle. That's why they call it vortex. And the main reason I hate vortex so much is that it is just way more powerful than anything else in that game. It's way more powerful than anything in Street Fighter 5 or Street Fighter 6 that followed after it. You literally had a sequence where it was not only safe, the risk versus reward was so much in favor of the person initiating the vortex. Let's just say you hit the opponent. You hit them with a big damage combo that would build their stun, and then that would set them up to be put in the vortex again. And it's not a 50-50, because not only was it safe for you, players are able to cover different defensive options with option selects. So instead of being a 50-50, it's more like a 75-25 or 85-15 in the advantage of the offensive player. And just having to deal with that on just a basic interaction, like, hey, you ate this sweep in the corner or you ate it in neutral, now you got to deal with this mix. It was just such a frustrating way to lose in that game. But even with those issues, Street Fighter 4 is still my favorite fighting game. And these are the reasons why. And I really, really wish Street Fighter 6 adopted these, and hopefully down the road there's still some opportunity that they implement them. If not, I hope in Street Fighter 7 we get to see them. But this is what made Street Fighter 4 so special. The first thing, and by far the most important thing to me, was just character expression and player expression. This is such a hard thing to explain, but Street Fighter 4 just had a feel to it that it seemed like anyone that picked a character, no matter what their level was, they had a unique playstyle was just suited for them. For example, when I look at Street Fighter 6, so many pro players look like they have a similar playstyle. It's not because they're not a creative player or they lack imagination, but it's because the in-game mechanics are so powerful that you literally have to use them to succeed. And that somewhat takes away from the freedom. Now again, this is all anecdotal, but look at Street Fighter 6 for example. When I see players like Ending Walker using Ed, or when Big Bird used to use Marissa, or better yet, when Shuto used modern Marissa, those three players actually felt like they were using their characters way different than everyone else. That type of distinction, you just knew, I'm watching a Big Bird Marissa or Ending Walker Ed, because they just had that playstyle to them. But in Street Fighter 4, this was insanely common. Like, just one example, like I was a Sagat main. If you take 3 Grandmaster Sagats from 3 different regions in the world, let's just say you take Bonchan from East Asia, or Reinhardt from Europe, or Sanford Kelly from North America, and you made them all pick the default color for Sagat, you would know exactly who was playing that Sagat just based on their own unique style. And of course, you know what Daigo's Ryu would look like, or Takedo's Akuma. All of these players just had this vibe to them. It's so hard to explain, but I really miss that. And I'll try to find the clip, hopefully while I'm editing this video you're watching it. But there's an old clip of Taquito doing an interview where he's just playing and commentating at the same time, playing random people online. And he ran into this one Sagat, and he didn't know that that was Bonchan at the time, but all he said in the interview was, this person throws tiger shots like the way Bonchan does it. And he's played Bonchan a million times in the arcades. He just knew that that random player online was Bonchan, and guess what? He was bang on. You can't do that in Street Fighter 6 to the same degree as Street Fighter 4, and that is a very special thing. The other thing I really loved about Street Fighter 4 is it let players play the game however they wanted to. And thankfully, James Chen actually highlighted this in a recent tweet, but it fits perfectly. You could play the game fast, slow, plays a grappler, pure zoner, rushdown zoner. Those options are all available to you. In Street Fighter 6, if you aren't using the drive system, let's be real, you're not really playing the game properly and you're not going to be winning. In Street Fighter 4, you could do perfectly fine without over-relying on FADCs, you know, especially if your character didn't get that much benefit out of it. But that freedom of choice was such a special feeling, and it just made any matchup against any player around the world just feel uniquely different, because not only did they have their own character to play as, they had that unique style that was just suited perfectly for them. And the final thing I really missed from Street Fighter 4 was just how long it took to get good with a character. And I know this is just a personal choice and a lot of people might not agree with this, but because of things like, you know, intense matchup knowledge or just tougher execution overall, it took a very long time to learn a character. And I'm talking about years to learn a character. Even if a pro player was to pick up a new character in Street Fighter 4, it would seem obvious. Trust me, people knew right away that they weren't comfortable with that character, and then they'd have to relearn all the different matchups as that character. And believe me, it was extremely tough. And that's why I would always tell people, when you got a person that was a character loyalist and they picked that same character for 6, 7, 8 years, believe me, those people enjoyed every single moment of that, because that type of journey you just don't get in modern fighting games, because so many of the combo routes are so similar, or the in-game mechanics are so powerful, you really can't flesh out a character as much as you can. But I'm telling you, I really miss that stuff, because you just went along that journey with your character and you learned and you lost with them, and it just made you a better player overall, in my opinion. Now, I actually have an entirely different video on why difficult combos are so important, so I'll get to that in another time. But believe me, fighting games made a huge mistake taking away hard to do combos. Alright, so the too long didn't read. In case you didn't want to watch the entire video, I don't blame you if you skipped here. The main point is, we shouldn't be comparing old fighting games just to trash another game, especially if both games are great. We don't have to like every single thing about every game, but just let people enjoy what they enjoy, and let's not try to buzzkill anyone. And I honestly believe the day Street Fighter 4 rollback is released, people will be in a much happier place, because now they can experience both of these games in their glory at the same time. So let the countdown begin until that happens, and peace out, everybody.